Welcome back to today's episode of Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast. My name is Tavia Vital. I'm a registered nurse, certified diabetes care and education specialist, and I'm the director of intensive diabetes management and the directora de Servicios en Español Integrated Diabetes Services. Today, I'm joined by three of my esteemed colleagues. We met briefly, probably a month ago, didn't we, guys, to talk about Trio? Yeah?
Okay. At least a month ago, yeah.
At least a month ago.
It seems like a long time, but yeah.
Let's just go around really quick, say who's who, and then our goal today is to talk about some of the features that we personally or that our clients totally love about Trio. Sound good?
Great. Right. Yeah, sure. Jenny Smith. I'm a RD CDCES, Director of Lifestyle and Nutrition with Integrated, user of Trio, previous user of Loop for many years, and yeah, we have lots of little tidbits to share.
And I am Kathryn Alvarez. I am the Director of Exercise Physiology, and I'm using Loop right now. So that'll be fun to discuss on our long podcast, but I'll go back to Trio pretty soon. I'm just trying out that food AI feature. Yeah. I keep forgetting to do it, but we set it up together. We got it paid for, ready to go, but I just got to remember to
use it.
Yeah, actually do the thing.
And I am Dana Roseman. I am the Director of Technology and Applied Research for Integrated and also a registered dietitian, CDCES, and a proud Trio user since January. I had a rocky start last summer when you guys originally started and kind of took a break. And then I think I just had to wait until I had bandwidth to get back started, and very excited I did.
That was I think we did the same thing, Dana, because I restarted using Trio in February this year after taking a fall and into winter break from it I went back to Loop. So yeah. And now my frustrations they're not there like they were last summer with Trio. So
well, I think there is a transition. We talked about this a little bit in our first podcast, but there for sure is a transition going from Loop to Trio, and it is not one size fits all in terms of settings. And I think maybe it took a little bit of time for us to figure out what knobs to turn.
And I think those knobs are also a little bit different as the developers have adjusted things and learned more. And we also all, I kind of think we chimed back in February together because we signed up to do the beta testing of the development branch of Trio that had a little bit more fancy feature to it. I think that has definitely led to one of my favorite things about Trio now was that one, if I remember correctly, the beta had in it the ability to add or use like a reduced bolus strategy, right?
Well, at first it was called like a fatty meal, and now it's called reduced bolus, which I love.
Yeah, I love it. I use it all the time. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, but it also, kind of speaks to the other thing I really like about Trio is entering protein and fat. And I have, it actually has really helped me keep track of my macros in a way, because I can see on my health kit just kind of my protein for the day. And, there just wasn't a great way to do that embedded in Loop. So now this is kind of like an easy hack. I love it.
UAM. So
yeah, exactly. Oh, you're only using it?
No entries.
No entries. Yeah.
Well, I enter my carb, but for protein fat coverage, I don't enter anything.
You don't enter anything.
Yeah, I want UAM to pick up and do it.
The funny thing is that I found that it will work both ways for me if I enter the fat and protein or I don't. But for me, I feel like when I add the fats and the proteins, not only like you, Dana, that I can actually be a little bit more accountable to those, and I can see it in my, my health data. But I feel like it tends to smooth things out a little better. Again, my N of 1, that's my experience. I also have really found that entering that and using that reduced bolus definitely works better too. So I don't know. And then you guys were like, Jenny, have you turned on your dynamics yet? And I was like, no. So I did a couple weeks ago, and that has even like further smoothed things. So
Yeah, dynamic is a game changer, but I also was kind of nervous for some reason to turn it on. I think because of way back when in last summer, I kind of just had so many lows, but I think it was just an issue of user error for sure. It wasn't the dynamic per se.
Yeah,
right.
because in the beginning, I think we didn't understand that, at least it was the case for, as far as I know, all of us, that we needed to back off on our sensitivity factors
Yeah. Yeah.
to be able to make Trio work really effectively without causing a bunch of lows. At least
Yeah.
that's what it was for at least three of us. Was that the same for you, Kathryn? You had to
I
have,
think, yeah, I think when I did it the first time around, I just like saw all the things and set them like super aggressive and just was completely willy-nilly. I was like, oh, this sounds great. I'm just hardcore. So, I mean, God only knows where my auto sends min and max and everything was set. But actually understanding those settings now and being able to it took some time, but dialing in
yeah.
auto sends min and max, those SMB and UAM basal minutes,
Well, it's just
adjustments.
vocabulary that's not in any other system. So, of course, it's going to take time for us, as patients and providers to kind of figure out what all of that is doing.
And I,
Well, and
a lot of them come from Android APS and Open
Right.
APS. Many of the, not all of the features, but most of them do. And so that was one way that that helped me learn, is to go back and look at the documentation for those other systems that have been around for a while to get the gist. There were more stories told and more paragraphs and different diagrams with the math for each segment. So if I put them all in a row, then I'd go, okay, I got it. I know what adjustment factor is, and I have an idea about if I change this setting, what it should be impacting. So then I can change the setting, look for a few days and go, yeah, it's doing what I wanted it to do. That was the thing I needed to do. Versus going, I think I have half of it. I'm not really confident about it, which is how we all started, right? Like
Right.
things to learn in the beginning.
I think the other thing that is really a fantastic feature, and that 100% kudos to the developers and everything for doing it, is Trio now has very, very clear description of each and everything that you could potentially put your fingers on and turn.
And the
there's
search bar.
in the search bar, you can
Yeah.
find it. You don't have to search through all your menus, but that information button is so nice when you're thinking, I have this issue. Would this address my
Mhm.
issue? And it even gives you, the default and why you may or may
Right.
not really want to go beyond the default. So anyway, that's another one that I really like.
Or you forget what the default was. So you need to go back to restart and reset it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the interesting things that we all learned about really recently, I don't know, Dana, if you're willing to share your recent adventure, because that was a part where we all Dana had a question. We all contributed and said, I think this adjustment should help. This adjustment should help. And then it ended up being all of those plus one other really important thing. And it was
Yeah,
another
and that was a
opportunity.
huge game changer. So I had a steroid injection, which I have unfortunately had many of these in the past 3 years for just some complications with my back. And so with these steroids, as everyone who has diabetes type 1 or type 2 knows, that those steroids are going to directly impact blood sugars and make you extremely insulin resistant for a certain period of time. And we talked amongst ourselves about making adjustments, and even with aggressive changes, I just wasn't able to get my blood sugars back in range that was going to work for me until I changed the target. And that was such a eye-opening way in terms of the way that the algorithm was adjusting. And then kind of with dynamic, with more aggressive settings, and then setting a temp target to allow the system to get me to that temporary target, things were immensely easier. And then I kind of slowly, as I was further away from the day of my steroid injection, maybe even 7, 9, 10 days later, kind of still titrated back a little bit insulin. And now I'm kind of back to normal. Thank goodness.
What about you, Kathryn? What's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing, honestly, I think is unannounced meal, covering the things that I just don't have to think about anymore. I think it's been incredibly helpful. Definitely on Trio, I can disengage myself much more than I can with any other system. I definitely pay a lot more attention using other things. Now, I will say, initially, like my time in range, when I was paying a little bit of attention to Trio, went up drastically. I don't even remember what it is now. But now that I've been running Loop again, my time in range is for the past 7 days plus 3%. So, I think it's in some way, like when you pay attention, you have a little bit more time in range, but
True enough.
so for like our mental health and everything, to be able to disengage and still have excellent outcomes is really great.
I agree.
I'd like to do a study on the percent focus you're having on your diabetes and how that correlates to a percent increased time in range or subtraction, whatever. I don't know how we would design that, but let's put it on our list.
Yeah.
And I like that all of us liked a feature, not necessarily the same feature or for the same reason. For example, our two spectacular dietitians really like the fact that they can track and get dosing for protein and fat, whereas Kathryn and I are like, reduce bolus or whatever, like just let it take care of it for me.
But I do think that unannounced meals, bolus is really what people love about Trio. I think that's what makes it distinguished from the other systems.
And I think the fact that the SMBs and the UAMs they don't stop basal, like you don't get those little boluses and then the basal is stopped, but rather it's grabbing the basal, giving it to you sooner. And then on top of that, if you need additional insulin for food you didn't dose for or for correction, then it can still provide that, that's a difference in the algorithm between Trio and AAPS and so on compared to Loop. It's just, so you have to adjust, you have to understand the parameters and adjust them to make the system work well for you. And I think that's a really key piece that separates, if you're going from Loop to Trio, for example, understanding how that works will help you be able to better back off and look at your settings and adjust.
Get confused in those aspects though, because they think like, I see it all the time posted on the Facebook page. Like people think that they're not getting basal. It looks, because if you look in Night Scout, it's taking it away and they're like, why is Trio not giving me any basal? Like my blood sugar is elevated. And it is. It's just you're getting it in
a bolus, right?
Right.
Yeah. I know there is I think that's something with other systems too, beyond even Trio, that navigate things similar. There are longer stretches of missing basal, and Loop didn't really work that way. There were stretches of missing basal, but not as dramatic as what you see in Trio. So if you are somebody that was paying attention heavily to almost the minute by minute kind of adjustments, it can get frustrating seeing 4 hours of sort of suspended basal when you're really not, I mean, that's not the right word because it's not suspended.
But I think that's also a positive of Trio is you really see in real time exactly what's going on in terms of that insulin delivery, whether it's the super micro boluses or basal. I mean, it's all just right there. And the screen is so chock full of information that can sometimes, I think, be daunting. But once you live with it and see it for a while, I think that's what that's what I really enjoy about that display.
I really like being able to push and see the details. Like, why is this happening right now? This is what I was anticipating. This is different. Let me see, especially if you have dynamics turned on, maybe my insulin sensitivity factor is set at, I'll just 80, but I'm running higher. So I'll look and see, and dynamics is like, yeah, but today you need like a 48. And so you're running high because you're more insulin resistant or your site's not working, something's going on. And instead of letting me be 300, it's rapidly adjusting based on parameters, based on the settings that I give it. You know, there's guide rails in there. It can't just do what math it calculates. It has to stay within the safety parameters too. But I think that's another feature that I really like is the connection between the AutoSense min and max and the dynamics, the options within dynamics. And I really like that you can, based on your situation, you can even adjust the percent total daily dose impact on
Right.
how it's calculating the dynamic flow, which for some people is just the difference between night and day.
Right.
I feel like with a lot of kids, that's a huge win, being able to adjust
Absolutely.
that.
Or certain times of the month, or when I had my steroids. I mean, all of that really impacted. That total daily dose. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it totally is not.
Is that something you adjusted when you did your steroid
I
adjustment?
did. Yeah, because it didn't really make a difference. I needed just more. I just needed more.
Yeah.
Word from our sponsor. Byram Healthcare understands that managing diabetes isn't one size fits all. With a full range of CGMs, insulin pumps, and diabetes supplies from top brands, Byram makes it easy to get what you need, hassle-free, shipped right to your door. And Byram's team of experts helps navigate insurance so you can focus on living your best life. Ready for better diabetes care? Visit byramhealthcare.com/podcast or call 866-692-8024 and select option 3. And now back to our program.
One of the things I'm seeing for some of my clients who are using Trio, which has been interesting, that are, let's call them converts, I don't know, that were on Loop and now they're using Trio, is they're seeing a lot more smooth time of day graphs more often between meals than they used to because of dynamics.
So you think their standard deviation is tighter?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I see that too. Yeah.
Most of the clients that I have on that are working with Trio are focused on tight time and range, and they have been better able to do that without becoming distressed and focusing every 5 minutes on it. It's because of the tools and the parameters they've been able to achieve what they set out to achieve.
Right.
So I think that's interesting to see in action.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
in
I would agree
terms
with that.
Analysis and sort of, I think Trio is definitely the system that does require some expectation of more extreme experimentation.
Agreed.
Understanding all the things that you could possibly make an adjustment to, but then being willing to say, well, I think this sounds like the right thing. I'm going to adjust it this way, and then taking the time to evaluate for 2 or 3 days. Did that actually hit the way that I wanted it to? And if not, there's usually something else in the picture that needed to be adjusted.
Right.
But kind of as a starting place too, even those moving to Trio, it does start with settings, right? In a more optimal place. And I know a lot of people often ask, well, how do I basal test with Trio? Right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a different strategy than
Right.
you would with Loop, or you would do with Omnipod 5, or you would do with, the other systems. So Tavia, what do you tell people for basal
Well,
testing?
I first was telling them the wrong thing, and then I learned that wasn't helpful.
That's why I brought it up, because I was like, I think
Yeah.
all telling them something that was kind of like a half truth, sort of.
Right. Well, it was what we brought that from other places, right?
Right.
So
Right.
What we thought in the beginning was that you would open loop for Trio. You would toggle it so it's not in closed loop fashion. Right. But then the drawback is it's not pinging every 5 minutes to the app. So there were a few missing pieces. One is when you do that, you get zero info about the basal that's actually being delivered during the time you have that toggle to open. So that's not helpful because you're trying to study the basal delivery and it looks like you're getting nothing, which
and it looks like it's blank. Yeah.
Right.
So that wasn't the answer, right? And then I tried setting a higher target. Like, let's just go low target, normal.
Because that's what you kind of do in closed loop basal testing.
Yeah. Go just like 180. And then at least you won't be getting these other little boluses or whatever. Well, then that sort of worked sometimes, but not everywhere. So let's see, do we all land at the same place? How do you do basal testing instructions now? I think that's the progress that we made. We went like that step, then the next step. And now what do you guys do?
So now it's max basal, right? And the default, I think, is 6. If I'm correct there, I might be a little off, but essentially setting max basal at 0.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
actually, and then obviously not eating or anything in that
Right. And having a fasted state. Yeah.
and
Right.
having truly just, it's not going to deliver anything extra technically, and you're going to be able to see the true basal rate that's running and if and when it's doing something to it, and that's a more true trio basal evaluation.
Yeah. And then an easy, like a sort of a in-betweener that worked really well for a teenager that I was working with was we did set a higher target and we turned off SMBs for the night.
Oh,
Just so that we could see what the basal by itself did, because you can see the basal displayed clearly if it's cranked up or paused or whatever. So
that's
was
kind of like going into the temp basal branch in loop and then just running kind of an extended target range and kind of working it that way.
Yeah, so it wasn't a true basal test, but it was more comforting to the parents than not allowing any extra if things were going to go wonky or whatever. So
yeah.
And then did you still put the max basal to 0?
Yeah, we didn't the first time, and then we did the next time when they saw that it was nothing dire happened overnight with turning off the SMB feature for the evening.
Right.
So yeah, there's more than one way to get the job done, which I think is interesting. But I think
well, and to clarify too, we're talking about max basal not being set at 0 units per hour. We're talking about max basal IOB, right?
Yes.
It's the max basal IOB, so that really it's not
giving extra above what's programmed in. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just for clarification.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, that was a good one to clarify.
Yes.
I was going to just kind of ask more and more as we get kind of comfortable with Trio and see the benefits. Who are you guys maybe suggesting it to that is maybe a different population than you were before? I mean, for me, teenagers, I think if they have a good kind of support system and understanding and the parents are obviously comfortable with it, to me, I think teenagers are a great group of people who benefit so much from that UAM.
And I would 100% agree. In fact, 2 of my more early teen last week that I worked with, they're always asking, is there something new? Is there something I should be doing? Is there a new adjustment to the algorithm? And I was like, well, your kiddo is becoming much more independent. And with that, those fluctuations post-meal, that could be potentially better hormones and all the things. I was like, here's the information about Trio. It is very different, but you're very knowledgeable. You've been using Loop for at least a year with really good effect and understanding of it. You're definitely a primary good potential for Trio.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other subgroups in there are, so in order to make Loop work extremely well, right, to get the biggest benefit from it related to food, you really do need to push the buttons to pick different food absorption times. It's a little bit easier, quote unquote, easier for adults than it is for kids, I feel like, unless they're really young kids and the parents are the one pushing the buttons. Once they get to like, especially middle school and high school, they're so busy doing their school things and their kid things that they stop being experts often at the right absorption time to help them get the bullets at the speed they need. So using Trio, we can set up % bolus, or we could tell them for suppers, hit the reduce bolus button or something that's not as, it's not as time consuming for them.
Right.
And get the benefits of the behind the scenes pieces of the algorithm. That and growth spurts and monthly cycle hormones for teenage girls, dynamics for the win. Sigmoid, that I think works well for that group of people, because it's just such a huge challenge. Is it growth? Is it PMS?
Right.
Is it ovulation? Is it a bad site? So many possibilities, right? But the dynamics can really help out. So there's less, doesn't make it perfect, but there's just less sort of wildness to the glucose when those features are all dialed in. That's what I've been seeing on my end.
Agreed.
The other bit that I love about Trio for a lot of athletes is to, again, turn off the SMBs just so that so many people, even on commercial systems, those correction boluses just drop them so much with activity in the mix, and you can turn all that off with Trio, which is lovely.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Well, I think this is a good place for us to stop. We
More to
plan
discuss.
to set up another time and really dig in a little bit more about how the algorithm itself works in Trio. And I suppose we can dip into how the algorithm in Loop works, because they're similar, but they are definitely distinct algorithms. All right, so we have a plan. To be continued. Today we discussed some of the many features and settings that we individually have found useful for ourselves and our clients when using Trio to help manage our type 1 diabetes. We also spent a little time talking about what the experience was like for us from transitioning from Loop over to Trio, and how there was an actual learning curve involved that did take us some time to navigate through. And the fact that we all had to get over some uncomfortable feelings of making changes, volunteering to try things that we aren't familiar with in order for the greater good, so that we can help clients who want to pursue utilizing a system such as Trio, but also so that we can individually benefit from some of the many different features and options and settings, adjustments that are a possibility inside of Trio to make managing our own type 1 diabetes less cumbersome and less burdensome. It's really been a great experience for our team. We got some team building out of the process, as well as anyone who is actually watching the video instead of just listening may have picked up on. We got to share and show off our great purple Trio t-shirts that we had made up, and that was fun for us to be able to share with you as well. We hope you enjoyed your time with us, and we look forward to producing some upcoming related to Trio and other open source content in our future, not too distant future podcast planning. So we look forward to spending more time together. And if you have any questions about anything we discussed today, please do not hesitate to reach out to our team. We would be more than glad to answer any questions you have about using open source technology or other diabetes related management questions that you have. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.